Her name was Caroline Edwards. And this is their cynical move here. They think, well, we'll bring in cops. They can't attack cops. Well, we'll bring in an attractive blonde. I mean, it's a woman. They can't. We actually can.
Greg Kelly, Newsmax host who on multiple occasions has proven to everyone that he's a pervy wanker. But aside from that, has raised his hand to say, no, we will absolutely attack cops as long as they don't go along with whatever narrative we want them to go along with. And in this case, he's talking about Officer Caroline Edwards, who testified on the first day of the House Select Committee hearings on the riots that took place on January 6th. Her testimony was powerful to say the least. So I want to give you a reminder of what she had to say. And then later, we'll tell you what Greg Kelly had to say in response to her powerful testimony.
What I saw was just a war scene. It was something like I had seen out of the movies. I couldn't believe my eyes. There were officers on the ground, they were bleeding, they were throwing up, they were, they had, I saw friends with blood all over their faces. I was slipping in people's blood.
So as she's giving that testimony, Greg Kelly is thinking about how attractive she is. He's also thinking about how he can essentially belittle her and minimize the message that she's sending there, the experience that she had on January 6th. And a good way to do that, especially with a right-wing audience, is to just draw attention to the fact that she's a woman, that she's blonde, that she's attractive. So you can't really take anything she says seriously, right? Here's a little more of what she had to say in response to her testimony.
You fell. You had a fall. Gotcha. That's a line of duty injury as well. A couple of 100 yards from you, Ashley Babbitt was being dragged backwards out of the Capitol as she was bleeding out, shot by one of your fellow officers, even though she was unarmed, posed no threat to anyone, okay? But you bumped your head. Got it. Comes off like somebody with a chip on her shoulder. This self-aggrandizing, I worked holidays, weekends. Yeah, well, you had a job to do. Yeah, you got paid. And you're being used. You're being used right now. I'm sorry you are called names, but this happens particularly in your line of work.
She tripped on blood, the blood of officers who were being battered by the Capitol rioters that he is providing cover for as we speak.
Yeah, but I want to clarify a number of things. First, she slipped on the blood later, but when she was knocked down, it was right-wingers who were smashing the fence into her, and they knocked her down, and she hit her head on the concrete. But she had already been knocked unconscious because she had hit her chin on the railing. Okay, so she didn't just slip, okay? They were assaulting her. Now,
the Crimea River though, Crimea River.
Yeah.
Oh, you got assaulted? You got assaulted? Well, you had a job to do. That's what he's saying there.
Yeah, so this guy's an old school bully, okay? And he thinks, oh, you think I won't attack her just because she's a woman? Oh yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. I don't care. I don't care that she's an attractive woman. Well, why'd you bring it up if you don't care? So now apparently you do care, but you're saying like, oh, normally I wouldn't bully attractive women. I would normally bully other people, but okay, I'll do it in this case too to protect my beloved Trump. And so now let's get to the greatest irony of all. Do you know why Greg Kelly's famous at all?
No, I don't. Tell me.
His father is Raymond Kelly, the New York police commissioner.
Oh, fascinating.
Okay, so Ray Kelly's no longer the police commissioner, but he was for a long time in New York, and he was very famous in New York. So Greg Kelly's just a do-nothing loser, and since his father was a famous cop, they're like, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm a spoiled little brat. I never did anything for myself. They're like, oh good, you get a TV show on Newsmax, okay? But now remember, you just puppet whatever the hell Trump says, and you shut up about it, and get out there and attack everyone who's our opponents. Oh yes, sir, absolutely, sir. And now they're like, okay, now attack cops. He's like, awkward. I've always defended cops. My dad was the top cop in New York.
But he's got to be a good boy.
Yeah,
you be a good boy.
Yeah. And whenever cops attack unarmed black men, I say it's awesome. It's fantastic. They had it coming, and whenever they don't work, we say, oh wow, we had to do a work stoppage because you guys offended us, etc. Now it's a cop who actually was assaulted, and she didn't shoot anyone. She showed incredible restraint in not shooting them. He's like, who cares? You don't care, so what? You had your head smashed in, yeah, you deserved it. Huh, you think I'm not gonna bully you? I'm gonna bully you. And you're a cop, I don't care. I don't care your life was in danger. I don't care that you were working overtime. All right?
Yeah.
Hey, where's my check? I got my check.
It is fascinating how he framed it as if like he's a tough guy for going after a female cop who, you're right, Cenk, not only did she show an incredible amount of restraint, all the cops who were being battered by these rioters showed a great amount of restraint. They didn't open fire. And the Ashley Babbitt situation, you have a rioter who's trying to get through a broken window to try to get to members of Congress who just earlier, by the way, they're chanting hang Mike Pence. They want to do damage to these lawmakers for not essentially stealing the election on behalf of their daddy, Donald Trump. I wish she hadn't gotten shot and killed. But let's keep it real. She put herself in that position and pretending as if there was no onus on her, that she did nothing wrong, and she was just this innocent, polite tourist who was shot and killed is ridiculous.
Yeah, and
I mean, come on.
He never cared about cops. He never cared all that Blue Lives Matter nonsense. The minute it's for his daddy Trump, he sells out cops who are actually in danger. Doesn't give a damn about them. He's just a cheap bully. Okay, Greg, that stuff might work among coward conservatives and who get scared easily. It doesn't work with us progressives. So give us more. I don't care. We're gonna call you out every time on what a loser bully you are. Go ahead and cry me a river.
Yeah. Can you imagine him in the middle of that riot?
Oh, he would have wet himself. Oh, Daddy, where are you? Well, I'm so scared. Shoot them all. Shoot them all. Right? That's what he would have been like. 100%. Oh my God, if they were a different color, like black or Muslim or brown or, oh, shoot them all, Daddy, shoot them all. Oh, it's Trump? Kill the cops, who cares? Bash their heads in. I'll just say they slipped. Who cares? And I'll just bully them on air. Cops, who gives a goddamn about the cops? Right, Greg? You're the one saying it, Greg. So you don't give a crap about cops, right, Greg? So we're super clear on that. All cops understand that Greg Kelly hates you and totally and utterly sold you out. That's a piece of crap that Greg Kelly is.
And Kamala Harris, the establishment is now saying that she should not run. Everybody knows she's a goofball. Sorry, here she is celebrating hip hop. Hip hop has done a lot of damage to America, especially American youth, people of color, people not of color, all kinds of people harmed by the message of hip hop. Not all of it, but a lot of it.
Yes, if we just waited long enough, he was about to quote Bill Cosby for sure. That was Greg Kelly on Newsmax talking about Kamala Harris enjoying hip hop and how bad hip hop is. No one's really sure where he was going with that entire thing, but what he was mentioning up top, which was Democrats themselves are having some doubts as to whether Kamala Harris is the best pick for President Joe Biden this second time around. And that is actually clear. There was an op-ed in the Washington Post that even said that Joe Biden himself shouldn't be running, and that Kamala Harris is not necessarily a good pick. But before we get to that, I just like how horribly crass the like hip hop for the youth, especially youth of color. We know what you're talking about, dude. And just in case anyone needs a reminder, Trump embraces hip hop artists and rappers as long as they love him. Remember how he granted clemency to Lil Wayne, Kodak Black in the final flurry of presidential power? I'm sure, I don't know who was pulling the strings, but remember then he tried to threaten a trade war with Sweden over A$AP Rocky's arrest in 2019. And then finally, not as famous, but everyone must remember, Forgiato Blow. Don't you know good old Forgiato over there, the guy with I think a Guess Who game of a beard going on. He had This was his collab over at Real America with Dan, Forgiato Blow and Dan Ball. There is a music video we will not subject you to. But guys, this is a fun way to get into a real substantive conversation about Kamala Harris. Before we do, it is still important to remember that even though people have doubts and her popularity is waning, Kamala Harris is a black woman who is vice president and is now still and will continue to be facing racist attacks on her, beyond her politics. And you had one example right there.
Yeah, it's super frustrating because I'm not a huge fan of Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, especially in running this particular race, which we need to win, and I'm not sure they're best positioned to win. But idiots like Greg Kelly make my job much harder because the minute you do a nonsense, insane attack like this, everybody rallies around the flag, right? On the Democratic side, and they want to protect her. Now it's super understandable, right? What is that? I mean, that's so Bill O'Reilly. I mean, it's like a couple of decades old to be like, oh, hip hop is corrupting the youth. It's it's these people of color. I don't know what they're up to with their newfangled music. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, it's both incredibly dorky and obviously racist. But my favorite part of it was, and people not of color.
Not all hip hop, but a lot. There was a lot of hedging there.
Yeah. It was really an opportunity, I think, to exploit a piece of video on Kamala Harris. And those moments that Kamala Harris has that are less than flattering, but they're just human moments. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with what she was doing, but they can play moments like that with Kamala Harris just to try to dirty her up, since she is someone who is losing altitude politically, friend.
Yeah, and I just one last quick thing about that. There's plenty of unflattering video on Kamala Harris, especially when she gives those repetitive answers, the weird laughing, etc. But that wasn't one of them. That was actually the most complimentary video of Kamala Harris I've ever seen. That was pretty good dancing.
Sure.
I was actually surprised by how good the dancing was.
But to that Newsmax audience or whoever Greg Kelly's on, I mean, I think that's viewed as, they're not evaluating that hip hop move in the same way you are, Cenk.
Yeah, that's very fair, Mark. That's very fair. And by the way, of all the different examples, I'll add one more. Kanye West with Donald Trump.
Oh, right.
And now all of a sudden you guys don't like hip hop? Please.
No, of course. Yeah. Well, so let's get into the actual substance here, because yes, it seems that there has not only been questions as to whether Joe Biden should be the presidential nominee for Democrats going into 2024, but whether Vice President Kamala Harris should continue to be his running mate. Now, we're gonna look at a couple of moments this week and see what you guys think. Is there shade being thrown at Vice President Harris here? Nancy Pelosi spoke, and she was basically talking about whether or not that Kamala Harris should be Joe Biden's running mate, and she had a very specific, direct answer, which was, well, Joe Biden chooses her. It's Joe Biden's choice. Was it an endorsement? I don't know. Take a look.
Is Vice President Kamala Harris the best running mate for this president?
He thinks so, and that's what matters. And by the way,
you think so?
She's very politically astute. I don't think people give her enough credit. She's, of course, values-based, consistent with the president's values and the rest. And people don't understand, she's politically astute. Why would she be vice president if she were not? But when she was running for Attorney General in California, she had 6% in the polls, 6% in the polls. And she politically astutely made her case about why she would be good, did her politics, and became Attorney General. So people shouldn't underestimate what Kamala Harris brings to the table.
But do you think she is the best running mate, though?
She's the vice president of the United States. So when people say to me, well, why isn't she doing this or that? I said, because she's the vice president. That's the job description. You don't do that much.
Okay, look, I don't always support everything Nancy Pelosi says, but I guess I don't read shade here. I read a pretty strong defense. Like, yeah, she's working things politically for herself and she's his pick. Now, maybe she weaseled out of that question, but I think ultimately, and we'll get to what Representative Jamie Raskin had to say, ultimately, yeah, she's his pick and that's the pick. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Is this not a full-throated enough endorsement of the vice presidential running mate?
Yeah, look, I'm curious what Mark thinks too, because I'm surprised Franny, your opinion on that. No, she clearly dodged the question, in my opinion.
Really? Okay.
Like massively dodged the question twice. And so she can say she's politically astute, and she's giving her comments. She's not going to insult the Democratic vice president, right? Especially as they're going into an election. But normally, what somebody like Nancy Pelosi would do would be, Kamala Harris is one of the best vice presidents we've ever had. What do you mean? Of course I think she should run with the president. I find the question offensive. Instead, she didn't even answer it. Wow. No, my read of that was they have for whatever reason that we are not perfectly privy to, they have lost all confidence in Kamala Harris.
It was interesting. I completely agree with Cenk. It was definitely shade. It's so easy to start whatever other stuff she was saying with the word yes. I support her. I think she's the best. You may not. I don't clearly think that she does, but at least at this juncture, normally you would offer a full-throated support of Kamala Harris, and then you would provide those, whatever she was saying beyond it, talking about her political acumen and all the rest. But then Cenk said something just a moment ago that's really interesting to me, which is we don't know why. And that's a great question. I mean, we know that she's taken on water politically, and she's never really been a great asset politically to the president. But and so when you look at her as a potential candidate or running mate, you see her political liabilities. But we don't really know why Nancy Pelosi wouldn't step up and just say the word yes. You can always back and fill and go back on it. But for some reason, she didn't. It was definitely shade, Franny, to me.
Yeah, I think the part of it that threw the most shade was like, that's the job of the vice president. You don't do that much. Like, ooh.
Yeah, well, that was definitely
Even
weak.
If that is that was the line.
No, I'm absolutely sure of it now. Like, it's Joe Biden's pick is saying it's not my pick. It's Joe Biden's pick. If you told me, does Mark wear that TYT hat really well? I wouldn't say, well, Mark wore a hat really well back in 1987, and it was like a nice fedora. And look, it's not my job to pick Mark's hat. It's someone else's job to pick Mark's hat. No, the answer is goddamn right he does. He looks beautiful with that hat on.